Welcome back to Tipton Bros. Today, we'll be discussing the German Kugel of the First World War. Now, let's get into it. The origin of the Kugel grenade began, oddly enough, with the 1904 Russo-Japanese War. As the conflict snowballed, European powers claimed a front-row seat to the ongoing carnage. German observers watched intently as large quantities of crude hand grenades were used to devastating effect on both sides. Previously, hand-thrown explosives existed for many decades by the turn of the 19th century, but had yet to carve out a meaningful role. Then viewed as an afterthought, a novelty of combat. A 1910 communication from the War Office of the Russian General Staff called the devices a long-forgotten weapon which for years had rusted uselessly in our arsenals. However, the Russo-Japanese conflict turned this narrative on its head. At the outset of the First World War, the German Empire was eager to demonstrate what it had learned, that being the practicality of hand grenades, debuting the Stielhandgranate, Eierhandgranate, and Kugelhandgranate. The Kugel came in three patterns: the Model 1913 Old, 1913 New, and Model 1915. Before looking at each individually, let's first cover their commonalities. The Kugel was constructed of heavy cast iron with large external segments for fragmentation. The metallic spheres were then filled with a mixture of 70% black powder to 30% potassium perchlorate and barium nitrate, roughly 45 grams of explosive filling. The shells were then drilled, threaded, and fit with a plug for transportation. In the field, a traction igniter or fuse was screwed into place. Operation was straightforward. Pull the brass priming wire, and the friction fuse would ignite, giving a 5 to 7 second delay depending upon the variant. With all that said and done, good luck heaving this 2.2 pound monstrosity beyond 20 yards. Given that the average World War I serviceman was 5'6" and well below 200 pounds, the Kugelhandgranate was unwieldy to say the least. Unless the Imperial German Army had some Dan Marino-esque specimens lurking in the trenches that I'm unaware of. The first, or Old Model 1913, is the most recognizable pattern of the bunch, having deep, angular frag grooves, not unlike the Soviet F1 in its pineapple appearance. The Old Model Kugel was also issued with a wrist lanyard and snap hook to help pull the priming wire. Next came the New Model 1913. Produced in limited quantities, this transitional pattern employed a simpler cast grenade body to meet growing demand. Identified by the shallow vertical strips in the mold, the twisted priming wire was unchanged. Lastly, the Model 1915. Again, the body cast was streamlined to shorten manufacture time. The Kugel then received an updated zinc alloy igniter, as opposed to the older bronze configuration. Arguably, the best modification was the priming wire. Instead of a narrow, twisted mess that would be hard to grasp in trench conditions, it was swapped for an open loop that could be pulled with a gloved index finger. Aesthetically, the Model 1915 is distinguishable by the ring steps at the neck and its fragmentation belt. Despite usage until the war's conclusion, the Kugel was a tertiary option behind the ever-popular egg and stick grenade. The sheer size of the explosive forced soldiers to implement a mechanical spring-based grenade launcher, which further damaged its stock. Ultimately, the Kugel went the way of the dodo, locked in time with the Great War. I hope you've enjoyed this brief overview of the Kugel hand grenade. We are a small channel, so a like is greatly appreciated, and recommendations are always welcome. Until next time, on Tipton Bros.